Hi there, Dizzy here, and welcome back to another episode of Discovering Anime Studios. Today we're doing Palm Studio, and the studio. Okay, just let me start off with saying something nice. They made the OV of Kuchibiji Unbalanced, which is a show I really enjoyed watching. I watched it as a kid, and if I rewatch it now, I'm pretty sure it won't hold up. But it was cute, it was wholesome. I liked everything about it, and the OVA was enjoyable. But they made an anime that I watched one time, and I watched the whole thing out of just pure curiosity of just like, does it even get better, or just does it just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse? And it is bartender. So basically, the entire premise of the show is like, there is this bartender, and the whole show is just people go to the bar he's at, and in the beginning of the show, they talk about like a cocktail. It's like something that's like made with lemon or coffee. It's just like a basic cocktail. It's like there's like a few like minute and a half narration of like the history of the cocktail, where it was invented, like the basic ingredients of it. Then it's like the bartender makes it, and some person like comes up to the bar, asks for the cocktail. Then they have like this fabricated emotional back and forth between the bartender and the customer of like, there was this one guy that hated cocktails and bartenders because when he was like 19, he went into a bar not knowing how expensive a cocktail would be. He ordered one, and when the bartender told him the price, he got embarrassed and ran out of there. And after that day, he doesn't drink cocktails, he just orders beers and hard liquor because he's like, he has trauma from that experience. So when the bartender makes him a cocktail and gives it to him, he says, I hate cocktails, and he drinks it, and he has like this emotional awakening, and he recovers from the trauma of not having enough money to cover his bar tab. That's what happened in that show. So it's there's a reason why this studio is not around making any more anime. So Passion. It was founded in 2011, and what I can say about this studio is they have range. They haven't really niched down to just make one type of show they're really good at, because they've made good and bad shows in different genres, and they have like a lot of range. And let me explain why. I didn't know like the first two anime they made, but then they made The Brave of Six Flowers, which had really great action, but the plot never really went anywhere, and I wasn't really impressed by it. But the action was exceptional. Then they make Citrus, which was like, damn, like one of the best. Like, it wasn't like a typical Yuri, but it was one of like the Yuri that I watched, and I was like, this is kind of interesting for the plot. And another show you'd watch for the plot. They made like the fourth season of High School DxD, and they changed the animation style, which I did not like. So there's that. And they made like Wasteful Days of High School Girls. Then they made one of the most amazing like ecchi shows, like plot-wise, just visually, or like the plot and the plot-wise. Interspecies Review. They're the ones who are like in charge of like the new Higurashi When They Cry. So they have a lot of range, ranging from horror to ecchi to Yuri to action, and a lot of the shows are really great. So I recommend you check out this studio. Studio Pierrot, which in my opinion is God gift to weebs. And let me explain. They were founded in 1979, and since then they've been making amazing, just chef's kiss shonen. And in the article it says that Studio Pierrot is renowned for several worldwide popular anime series such as Naruto, Bleach, Yu Yu Hakusho, obviously, Black Clover, one of the new gens, Boruto, I don't know about that, but some people like it. Tokyo Ghoul, it was great for the first season actually. Second season was watchable. After that, don't even get me started. And The Great Teacher Onizuka. But they forgot to mention a lot of their shows that you should watch, and I'm going to be recommending them based on the era they were made. In the 80s, I don't know anything from the 80s that the studio made, because they are like super old, just like 40 years. So I don't know anything from that era. But starting from the 90s, you have Yu Yu Hakusho. You should definitely check it out. Flames of Raka, an incredible show. At the end of the show, it just kind of got repetitive, and there were some points that I didn't really like. But overall, like the tournament arc thing, it was obviously inspired by Yu Yu Hakusho, but it was still a great show. The Great Teacher Onizuka. Like, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's like one of the best shows I could recommend to you. It's an incredible watch. Then in the 2000s they made the 12 Kingdoms, which you should definitely check out. Then in Naruto, as I mentioned earlier, Bleach also. Emma is like a cute like rom-com that I watched when I was a kid that you should definitely check out. Sugar Sugar Room was also something I watched as a kid. You should also check it out. If you like cute, I would say magical girl-ish shows, other than that I would recommend it. Naruto Shippuden, amazing. Blue Dragon, like I'm pretty sure a lot of people grow up watching this because it was a really fun show and they were the ones who made it, so you should definitely check it out. And you haven't seen any of like the shows I'm like recommending, must watch. Believe me, must watch. The 20 teens, they made Level E and absolutely hilarious and you should watch it. Then they made Kingdom, which is not the same as 12 Kingdom. I thought they were the same show until like I watched them like side by side and I was like, oh, like they're different shows. Tokyo Ghoul, you should check it out. Yuan of the Dawn. It's kind of sad that the story never really went anywhere, but it's really fun to watch. The action is kind of great. The characters are very interesting and you should check it out. And I made Boruto. So that's an L on their part, but they redeemed themselves by making Black Clover. So that's it. Like in the 20s, they made Akudama Drive. So that's it for this video. Watch like everything that I recommended. Like required reading if you're like a shonen fan. In Pinjam, which was a studio that was made in 2015, and they make boring shows. And by that I mean you might recognize some of these titles. So here's a first, it's Gamers, which is like a game that's like geared to be marketed to otakus, which was like about gaming culture and all that, which was exceptionally boring. Just because they made that show, just because the plot didn't go anywhere, the characters didn't go anywhere, and it just happened. Gulpnir, one of the most boring survival battle royales that I have seen. It started out great, like the first 2.5 episodes, then it went nowhere. Then they made Opera Girl, which I watched and really enjoyed, to be honest. So maybe they're redeeming themselves, and after this they're like doing DIY, like do it yourself, the anime, which could be interesting because they are like taking a very basic concept and taking it, like making it an anime. So if Opera Girl and do it yourself just like pop off, maybe they redeem themselves. But so far they just make boring anime. Platinum Vision, which was made in 2016, and they make bizarre shows. That's the only thing I could describe them as, because they made Revamp, which is like, I'm not really sure what that show was really about. I saw a couple of trailers and it's on my watch list, but I don't know what the show is actually about. But then they made Devil's Line, which is, the premise of the show is basically horny vampires. Like that's the show. Just, they made like, you know, that part like every 14-year-old was simping over when Twilight was like a thing of like vampires are like, they're so hot and everything, and you know the whole what was the vampire dude saying, like the girl, I think Belle and Eric or something, like they bagged and everyone was like, oh. If that scene became an anime and became a 12, like the whole 12 episode was like, oh, vampires are horny, and I can't even take this show seriously. I can't take this studio seriously. These are all the shows they made, and if you want a little bit of weirdness in your life, check it out. Polygon Pictures. They were founded in 1983 and they make CGI, and they're pretty much one of the two CGI studios that I watched their like entire catalog of like what they done, and I really appreciate their work for what they do. Like the CGI they make is great. Like so just let me explain. They were the ones that made the CGI for Ghost in the Shell 2. They also did Knights of Sidonia. They were involved in making Ajin. They were the ones who made like the Blame movie, the Godzilla like movies that have been like being released like in the past couple of years, like I think the last 6 years. They were like had like some degree of involvement in all of them. They were involved in making the CGI for Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Transformers Prime, and also Big Hero 6. You know, the one with like the MILF. Yeah. So overall, they make really good CGI, and it's like one of the few CGI studios like that I came across that like they're like really good. They make impressive work, and you should check them out. I don't know like all the things that they made, but I recommend you check them out. And if you know this like if you know the anime I didn't talk about, if there's like anime I forgot to mention like in the list and you think they were like worthy of like being mentioned, tell me about them in the comments. Project IG, which is a really great studio right off the bat. They were founded in 1987, and from when they started like in the 80s until 2015 they didn't make a lot of anime. Like in reality, if you split the anime they made up before like 2015 and after 2015, a majority of their work would land like past 2015. Not like all of it, but they made a decent amount of anime until 2015, and past that they just kept out like making anime after anime after anime every season. So because there's like a lot of anime and I couldn't cover all of them, I'll just give you recommendations of what the studio has made that you should definitely check out. Starting off is Ghost in a Shell standalone complex. Like the entirety of Ghost in a Shell was amazing and you should check everything out. Cromarty High School, one of like the funniest short anime I've ever seen. I was laughing so hard, like my ribs started to hurt because like just it was fun. Blood Plus. I put this here not to recommend this, but to recommend the movie that's like this show is based off of, because the movie like was the best part of this whole franchise. It hooked me. I watched it, and I watched the anime. It didn't live up to like the epicness of like the movie. Just watch the movie. XXX Holic. It was interesting. It was fun. It had like some weird concepts. I couldn't get my head around because it was like based off of like Japanese mysticism and they're like mystical monsters, and that's like what's built off of. So some things I didn't really get, but overall, interesting watch. Eden of the East. It was an amazing. I would call it a psychological thriller because there were like some major stakes in it, and it was amazing. Bunny Drop, one of the best like family-based like anime I have watched, like based on like the dynamic of like family and family members and what it means to be like a parent and you know things like around like that line of thought, and I really loved watching it. Guilty Crown, which I would call a decent anime. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but a lot of people like it, so I just thought I would recommend it because it's a relatively well-known thing that the studio made. So there's that. Kuroko no Basket, one of my favorite sports anime. It's epic. It's just if you give like that show is basically like how you pitch it is like if you gave a bunch of teenagers superpowers and told them to play basketball. That's the whole show. So there's Psychopaths. The first season of it was absolutely incredible. Like the questions they were asking, like just everything was nice. Then they made Haikyuu, which great show. They were the ones who made the remake of Legend of Galactic Heroes. I really loved the original, so I would recommend you watch this too. And this studio had a hand in making every part of Fully Cooley. Fully Cooley Progressive, and Fully Cooley Alternative, which all of them are amazing, and you should watch all of them. They have like different ONAs, OVAs, like films they were involved in. Like they have like their fingers in many parts, and you should check them out. And you should check all of them out. They did like Ghost in a Shell, Neon Genesis Evangelion, pretty much a lot of the big like titles from the 90s, the early 2000s, and some like the 2010s ones. They had a hand in making. So you should check them out. So you should give this studio a chance and you should check out what they have made. Production IMS, which was founded in 2013 and later filed for bankruptcy in 2018. And when you see like the shows they made, you won't be surprised that they didn't really make a lot of money, so they went to bankrupt, because this studio pretty much makes what I could call trash harem ecchi anime. So this is like the roster of their anime. The second season of Date Life, generic trash ecchi. Testament of Sisters, also generic trash ecchi. Active Ride, generic trash. 100, generic trash ecchi. High School Fleet, you know, Hybrid Heart. Then the OVAs they made, Date Life, Testament of Sisters, High School Fleet. They made a lot of generic ecchi harem and they failed to turn a profit and they went under. So if you like, I don't know, generic ecchi harems, or you recognized one of the titles, just watch everything they made. Like it's basically the same thing. It's like you take like you take the same plot, risking the protagonist and like the harem girls, and you have every show they made. So if you're like into ecchi harem, so check out Production IMS, Project Number 9. They were founded in 2009, and since then they went on to make a lot of trash anime. And there's like a lot of these shows that I didn't recognize, like the first 5 years of the anime they were making. But then like I got to 2016 and they made And You Thought There Are No Girls Online, which basically operates under the premise that, you know, you know that joke from player number 1 where he says like she's a girl, and like how do you know she's a girl and not some fat middle-aged dude in the middle of nowhere? And I was like, that was like the whole basic premise of the show, where you think like the main character thinks that every person they interact with inside of like this MMORPG he plays is a guy, but it turns out that all of them are like cute chicks. That's like the whole premise of the show. Then moving on from that, like the last 3 years of like the anime they made High School Prodigies Have It Easy Even in Another World, which was one of the most trash isekai I've watched, and even like by the standards of like isekai anime, like you know, like the bar for isekai anime is like pretty low, and they even missed that. Then they made Super Eros, which was a really dumb interpretation of like the superhero genre. They made it ecchi but not in a fun way. It was horrendous. Then they made Bottom Tier Character, which initially seemed like a great show because like the premise of it seemed interesting, but in practice it was completely garbage. So that's what they made, Radix Ace Entertainment, which was founded in 1995 and closed down in 2006. So the 9 years they were active, they made a couple of shows, and I don't know them because a lot of shows like from the 2000s and the 90s, unless they were like exceptionally popular, they just are forgotten by everybody, and nobody even like remembers what they were until like they see like a picture of it or something, and like, oh yeah, I watched it in like 2012 or 2012, like I watched it in like 2005. It was mediocre and something like that. So they did nothing from the studio that stood out to me as like being big, except this one that I watched that's like Habin Ranmi. I think that's like it wasn't popular or famous. It was recommended to me by someone and I watched it, and it was a very odd experience. So if you want to watch something that's like trippy and throws you for the loop, watch it. Other than that, I have nothing to recommend from this video. And if you're like a, I don't know, 90s or early 2000s anime watcher and you know any of these shows, recommend them to me. Other than that, that's it for this one. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something new, because this is the only place on YouTube you can get a proper animation. If you didn't, that's several minutes of your life wasted, and you're not getting it back. Okay, ciao.